Welcome back to the English Prep Podcast, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that, well, catches a lot of people out in exams like IELTS.
Ah, you must mean the true-false not given reading questions.
Exactly those. They look simple enough on the surface, don't they? But they can be surprisingly tricky.
They really can. And it's not just about knowing the vocabulary, although that helps. It's more about understanding precisely what the text says and doesn't say.
Right. And critically, not bringing in your own ideas or what you think should be true.
Absolutely. Stick to the text. That's the golden rule.
Hmm.
And, getting good at these actually helps with other question types, too.
Like matching info or sentence completion?
Yeah, precisely. It builds that core skill of careful reading and information processing. So it's worth putting the effort in.
Definitely. Okay, so let's say you're faced with one of these questions. What's the absolute first thing you should do?
Okay, first step. Look at the statement itself. Before you even glance at the passage, try to boil it down to its core meaning.
Boil it down. How do you mean? Like simplify it?
Yeah, kind of. Strip away the extra bits, relative clauses, descriptive phrases. Find the main subject and verb, the essential claim being made.
So if the question says, the archaeological dig, which lasted 3 years, definitively proved the ancient city's location, you'd focus on the dig proved the location.
Exactly. The lasted 3 years part is detail, maybe important later, but the core is dig proved location. It helps you focus.
Got it. Makes sense. What's next after isolating that core idea?
Then you really zoom in on the keywords in that core statement. Nouns, numbers, dates, places, the factual stuff.
Okay.
But also, and this is crucial, look out for what some people call trap words.
Trap words. Sounds ominous. What are those?
Huh? They can be. They're words that strongly affect the meaning, often absolutes like always, never, only, all, none, or sometimes qualifiers like often, some, mainly.
Ah, because the passage might say something slightly different, like often instead of always.
Precisely. If the question says always and the passage says often, that statement is immediately false. That one little word changes everything. So highlight those.
Right. Circle them, underline them, whatever works. Okay. Core statement identified, keywords and trap words highlighted. Then what?
Now, still before reading the passage, take a second to predict synonyms.
Predict synonyms?
Yeah. If your keyword is, say, increase, think about how else the text might express that. Maybe grow, rise, expansion, improvement.
Ah, I see. So you're priming your brain to spot the idea, even if it's worded differently. That's smart.
It really helps with recognizing, paraphrasing quickly when you start scanning.
Okay, so we've done our prep work on the question itself. Now we actually look at the passage, right? Where do we start looking?
This is where knowing the structure helps. True-false not given questions nearly always follow the order of information in the passage.
Oh, that's good to know. So you don't need to jump around.
Generally, no. Find the answer to question 1, then start scanning from that point onwards for question 2, and so on. It's much more efficient.
Definitely saves time. Okay, so we're scanning. We think we found the relevant bit of text. How do we make the final call? True, false, or not given?
Right. This is the decision point. It's like a little checklist.
Yeah.
Is the information in the passage a direct match for the statement in the question? It might use synonyms or different grammar, but does it mean exactly the same thing?
If yes, then it's true.
If yes, it's true. Clear match. Now, does the passage say something that directly contradicts the statement? Like the opposite fact, a different number, a conflicting idea?
And it's false.
Correct. A direct contradiction makes it false.
Okay, that seems straightforward enough for true and false. But then there's the tricky one, not given.
Ah, yes, not given. This is where most people get a bit stuck. Not given means the passage simply doesn't provide the information needed to confirm or contradict the statement.
So the topic might be mentioned, but that specific detail in the question isn't there.
Exactly. Maybe the question mentions a specific reason or a number or comparison, and the text talks about the topic generally, but doesn't give that specific piece of information. Or perhaps you just can't find any relevant information at all after scanning carefully.
So if you're reading the text and thinking, I'm not sure if it says that.
If you're genuinely uncertain after checking the relevant section carefully, the answer is almost always not given. Don't guess true or false if the evidence isn't explicitly there.
That's a key takeaway. Uncertainty probably means not given.
A very safe bet in an exam situation.
You mentioned paraphrasing earlier. Can we talk a bit more about that? Because it's not always just single words, is it?
No, absolutely not. Intermediate learners often get tripped up here. Paraphrasing can involve changing the sentence structure completely. Like, Pollution causes health problems might become health problems often result from exposure to pollution. Or poor air quality is responsible for a rise in respiratory illnesses.
Wow, yeah, those are quite different structures, but the same core meaning.
Exactly. And recognizing that is key. A good way to practice this, actually, is to take news headlines and try rewriting them in a few different ways using different vocabulary and sentence patterns.
That's a great practical exercise, daily practice, maybe.
Even just 5 minutes a day on something like that can really sharpen your paraphrasing skills.
Okay, going back to those trap words, the absolutes and qualifiers. Can you give another example of why they're so critical?
Sure. Let's say a question states, children only watch television programs designed for them. But the passage says, while children predominantly watch age-appropriate shows, they are sometimes exposed to other content.
Ah, the only in the question is contradicted by the sometimes exposed to other content in the passage.
Precisely. Even though children mostly watch kids' shows, the word only makes the statement absolute and therefore false based on the passage. You have to be so careful with those small words.
They pack a big punch. Okay, so let's really nail this false versus not given distinction. It feels like the main battleground.
It often is. Think of it this way. For it to be false, there must be a piece of information in the text that directly conflicts with the statement. A different fact, number, name, reason, opposite meaning.
Okay, a direct conflict.
Yes. But for not given, that specific piece of information from the statement is just missing. The text might talk around the subject, but it doesn't confirm or deny that particular detail.
So maybe the question says, the project cost over $10 million, but the text only says, the project was very expensive.
Perfect example. Very expensive doesn't confirm or deny over $10 million. We don't have the specific number, so that would be not given.
What if the question uses definite language like will, but the passage uses cautious language like may or could?
Good point. That's often a false. If the question makes a definite prediction, this will solve the problem, and the text is speculative, this may help solve the problem, that difference in certainty is a contradiction.
Okay, so look for direct contradictions for false, and missing key details or just no mention at all for not given.
That's a solid way to approach it.
Now, the clock is always ticking in these exams. We've got maybe, 90 seconds per question?
Roughly, yeah. Maybe a minute 20, minute 30 on average across the whole reading section. Time management is absolutely vital.
So any strategies for dealing with that pressure specifically for true, false, not given?
Definitely. First, set yourself mini deadlines as you practice. And in the exam, if you're spending, say, more than 2 minutes on one question and you're still stuck,
Move on.
mark it and move on. Seriously. Make your best guess based on what you've seen, leaning towards not given if unsure.
Yeah.
Circle the question number on your answer sheet and come back later if you have time. Don't get bogged down.
That mark and move strategy is crucial. Saves you from sacrificing easier points later.
Absolutely. Another tip. Try reading 2 questions at once before scanning.
2. How does that help?
Because the answers are usually close together in the text. If you have 2 questions in your head, you might spot the information for the second one while you're still scanning for the first. It can make your scanning more efficient.
Ah, like hunting for 2 things simultaneously. Clever. Okay, what about practicing at home? Any tools or techniques you recommend?
Well, timed practice is essential, obviously. Use a Pomodoro timer, maybe. Get used to that 90-second rhythm.
Right.
For paraphrasing, you could use browser extensions that highlight synonyms as you read online articles.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate practicing on paper. The real exam is often on paper, so get used to that format, too.
Good point about paper practice. And maybe even reading aloud or using text-to-speech sometimes.
Yeah, combining visual and auditory input works well for some people. It helps process the information differently. Anything that helps you internalize the skills.
And these skills, they're not just for IELTS, are they? Do they help with other exams like TOEFL?
Oh, for sure. TOEFL Reading has questions about factual information, inferences, and identifying incorrect statements, negative factual questions. The core skills of understanding precise meaning, recognizing paraphrase, and spotting contradictions are directly transferable.
So the effort pays off more broadly. That's encouraging. What about general reading improvement? Anything specific that helps, particularly with this question type?
Well, improving reading speed without losing accuracy is key. Techniques like chunking, reading groups of words instead of word by word, can help.
Train your eyes to take in more.
Exactly. Also, try making tiny notes in the margin as you read practice texts. Just a couple of words summarizing each paragraph. It forces you to engage and helps you locate information faster when scanning later.
Active reading, basically.
Right. And timed rereading of articles can build speed too. Read it once, then read it again, trying to go faster while still getting the main points.
These are great practical tips. Now, mindset. Exams are stressful. How can we approach these questions mentally?
It helps to think of them less as a language test and more like a logic puzzle.
A logic puzzle.
Yeah. You're looking for evidence. Does statement A match text B? Does it contradict it? Or is there no connection? Framing it that way can sometimes lower the anxiety associated with getting the English right.
Detach emotionally a bit. Focus on the logic. I like that.
And simple things, like a few deep breaths before starting the reading section, can genuinely help you focus. Don't underestimate managing that exam stress.
Absolutely. Okay, for someone listening who wants a structured approach, could you maybe outline a brief, say, 4-week practice plan focusing on these questions?
Sure, a simple plan could look like this. Week 1, focus heavily on vocabulary, especially synonyms and antonyms relevant to academic texts. Maybe use flashcards or apps. Week 2, dedicate time specifically to paraphrase, practice rewriting sentences, identifying paraphrases in texts.
Okay, vocab then paraphrase.
Week 3, start doing timed practice sets of just true, false, not given questions. Really focus on applying the strategy and working on your timing per question. Week 4, integrate everything. Do full reading practice tests under exam conditions, paying close attention to your performance on the TFNG questions, reviewing mistakes carefully.
That sounds manageable and progressive. Of course, people should adapt it based on their own needs and time frame.
Exactly. It's a template.
Are there any common myths about these questions that trip people up?
Oh, definitely. The biggest one is probably, if I can't find it, it must be false.
Forgetting about not given.
Right. You have to consider not given. Another is thinking vocabulary lists are useless. They aren't if you focus on learning words in context and their synonyms paraphrases, not just isolated definitions.
Good point. Context is key. Any others?
Yeah, the idea that you must read the whole passage in detail first. For some people that works, but for many, reading the questions first and then scanning strategically is much more time efficient for IELTS.
So, find the strategy that works best for you through practice.
Precisely.
Okay, final question. Exam day. Any last-minute tactical advice specifically for true, false, not given?
Before you even start reading the passage, quickly skim all the true, false, not given statements for that text. Just get a general idea of the topics they cover. It prepares your mind.
Crimes the brain again.
Yes. And when you're answering, use minimal marks on the paper, maybe just underline keywords. And crucially, trust your strategy. If your analysis points to not given based on the lack of evidence, stick with it. Don't second guess and change it to false just because it feels wrong.
Trust the process, trust the checklist.
Exactly.
This has been incredibly helpful. So just to wrap up, mastering these questions really comes down to a systematic approach, doesn't it?
It really does. Understand the statement, identify keywords and traps, predict synonyms, scan efficiently, and apply that true, false, not given logic rigorously. Focus on what the text explicitly says or doesn't say.
And practice recognizing, paraphrasing, and being super aware of those small but mighty trap words.
If you do that consistently, you'll definitely see an improvement in your accuracy and, just as importantly, your confidence.
So we really hope you listeners try out these techniques. Think of it like building your detective kit for the reading exam.
Yeah, become a text detective. And we'd love to hear from you. What are your biggest challenges with these questions? Or are there other reading types you want us to tackle in a future deep dive? Let us know.
Keep practicing, keep learning, and thanks for tuning in to the English Prep Podcast. We'll be back soon to help you further on your English journey.